Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns and today we are going to drop into the realm of real talk. Normally I think I'm a pretty calm individual and I definitely don't flip out in fits of rage. I'm British, we don't do that here. But despite Star Citizen being at times a buggy mess and still very much an early access title, it is still the game that many of us log into every day or every time our real life schedule allows for a bit of fun with our mates. I know that when I jump into the subject matter of this video, some of you are not going to like it, and you might feel that I'm beating down on the game. You might feel that I'm taking a proverbial crap on something that you love, but hear me on this, I love it too. And the only reason I'm making this video is because I want SC to be the game that those of us who love it think it can be. Because for some time now, the sheer scale of exploiting by some players has been grating on me, and the lack of any action by CIG is a little worrying. I know that there is a tightrope to walk here. On one hand, testing the game and getting exploits reported and fixed is imperative for the eventual 1.0 release of the PU. But on the other hand, the low level of targeted action against people who really abuse exploits to gain advantages over others is concerning me. This one might really need that cup of tea, so go grab a brew or maybe something a little stronger, then let's get into it. First up, I think it's important to discuss the spectrum of exploits in a game like Star Citizen, just to frame this and make for a healthy debate. I first thought about making this video after an interaction I had with a member of a PvP org. They came to me calling out one of my members and friends for using an exploit to glitch through a door at the checkmate contested zone. If you've been blissfully unaware of why there's a box or piece of armor in front of nearly every locked door in Star Citizen, this is why. Now I had a chat with my friend, and he explained that the crew had used a red card on the door. This had bugged out and got eaten without opening said door, so since they didn't have another and they just spent half an hour to go get the first one, they chose to glitch through the door using the exploit. So while this isn't my personal preference, I would probably just have grumbled and moved to a new server myself, I do get it, and ultimately I don't think there's any harm in doing it. In my opinion, when it comes to exploits, you have a scale and two questions to answer to decide where you sit on it. Does this hurt anyone else or impact their gameplay experience negatively? And does this make my gameplay experience better or worse? On the far end, you've got harmless exploits, those that don't hurt anyone else and make your gameplay experience better. In this category, I would include things like resetting your spawn to your home location and hitting backspace to fast travel, or landing at the new Babbage Commons entrance, buying some stuff and then exiting to menus. You are just saving yourself a wee bit of time and getting more of the fun parts of the game into your evening. No, you won't be able to do this when Death of a Spaceman or location persistence on logout is a thing, but we'll also be past the point of wipes, etc., so while your progress may take some more time, it will be more permanent. So to my mind, this is swings and roundabouts. Slightly further up the scale, into the grey zone, you do have things like using the box glitching trick to get through a bugged out door. I would say the big reason I don't do this sort of thing myself is that I find all these tricks to get through such doors janky as hell, and I don't enjoy the frustrating process of doing it. But if the door is bugged and inoperable, then you aren't harming anyone else's experience, since nobody could get through that door. And you could argue that you are making your gameplay experience better, because you did the work to go and prep with the keycard, but then the game went and bugged out on you and ate your progress. But where we get into failing these questions is the other end of the exploit spectrum. And this is where we get into, let's call it what it is, plain old cheating. When you use the box glitch because you couldn't be bothered to go and get the red card, you might be able to argue that it makes your gameplay experience more fun, maybe you just hate the mission to the Pyam supervisor bases. I would argue that you're missing out on the option to level up your gameplay and improve your skills, but okay, let's just accept this. But you are hurting other players who are trying to enjoy the game as intended. When I was recording my Contested Zones guide, there were so many instances of getting into shootouts with players who simply couldn't have been inside a room legitimately, or getting into the vault at Ruin Station to find that, despite the door having been closed on a timer, all of the comp boards were on cooldown because someone nabbed them 10 minutes before. You taking the easy route and cheating in this instance hasn't been harmless. Someone who did everything right and by the book just lost out. And then we get into duping, the thing that has really tipped me over the edge and made me want to make this video. Right now in Star Citizen, we are unfortunately at the start of another great dupening. Within our org FRCN, we've been having a great time making some extra cash from mining nights and other events by getting involved with the P2P market that's sprung up through websites like UEX. The opportunity to sell items that are integral to the Wicklow system created this beautiful opportunity for emergent gameplay that was cooperative in nature rather than violence against one another. With those who were able to acquire the goods through things like Hathor or Enter the Storm, providing a market for those who preferred other types of gameplay or wanted a reward from Wicklow but couldn't get enough people together to do the content. Now, some people, given their existing views on accessibility issues surrounding these locations, may just say, great, screw the big org who are locking down the sites. But just try and put that to one side if you can. The player-to-player economy, when done well, means that you can spend your time enjoying the gameplay that you love the most. You can generate the high-level rewards associated with your main loop, and then you can trade with others who, in the words of Mr. Muscle adverts, love the jobs you hate. My suspicions were aroused when all of a sudden, the price of Quantanium and Polaris bits that I had until then been selling quite nicely on behalf of the org, started to fall, and then new orders completely dried up. I went onto UEX and I found completely nonsensical entries like this. A Polaris bit is comprised of 24 SCU of Quantanium. Quant Refined sells to the TDD for about 25k per SCU, so the theoretical floor for a Polaris bit is around 600k. And that's just breaking even versus the TDD, which takes many times less effort and much less risk than going to Wicklow and making a Polaris bit. And sure enough, these prices are because people have found a way to replicate any item that you can fit in your hands and your backpack. Now, I have zero intention of showing you how to do this, and adding some BS label like bug report or calling CIG's attention please don't abuse to the title, and some people will be cursing me for drawing any attention to it at all. But judging by the Polaris bits littering the halls at major landing zones, I would say the cat is well and truly free of the bag already on this one. And therefore this is time for us to have a difficult conversation as a player base. Now, I would argue that this type of exploit fails both tests. Even if you are someone who just dupes for your own personal use, you make a bunch of favours, bits and gems to get yourself a Polaris or some other Wicklow favour, I would argue that you have lessened your own gameplay experience. Yes, you have a cool ship, but you did not earn it. You didn't learn any skills that will make you a better player in the long run, and you didn't get incentivized to do other cool stuff, like going out and making some friends in-game to run Hathor, or help you mine some Quant. I would also argue that you still hurt other people's experience. You killed the market for goods, because rather than grinding some cash and buying the things you couldn't otherwise get from people who could, you just magicked them into existence. And you also deprived maybe a new player of the opportunity to come along and sit in your turret and be your mole co-pilot. I know that this will not sit well with some of you who are doing this. I fully expect to see my sub count go down as much as it goes up as a result of this video. I just don't care. Because the I'm just doing it for me, I'm not harming anyone else isn't really true, and somebody needs to call it out. But I will and I do totally accept that those of you who are just doing it for yourselves are not the worst. The worst by far are those who use these exploits to massively enrich themselves, selling the duped items on the player markets for cheaper than anyone can compete with legitimately, watching the credits in their wallet roll up while they deprive others of gameplay. And the most depressing thing is that when a wipe happens, it is these players who will find the next exploit and abuse that to the nth degree. In my view, for the sake of the integrity of the game, players who CIG can see are abusing these systems at excessive levels should just be no holds barred banned. CIG should send a really strong message that if you fuck around, you find out. While this is an alpha, and a limited use of a duping exploit or other such egregious cheating methods should be tolerated, this should be in the context of reproduction and testing. I have, on my alt account before making this video, conducted this dupe with a few various items, seen it with my own eyes and the speed at which it can be done, and filed my contribution to the issue council. I should in no way fear account loss or IP restriction as a result of this. But while CIG are also marketing this as a playable live experience, they should apply some nuance and realise that those people who have duped thousands of items are not doing it for testing. They are creating an environment and a culture within the game that cheating is tolerated, and unless harsh punishments are meted out, then this will just continue to get worse as time goes on, and the reputation of this game will suffer as a result. While this has, as many of you will tell from the brief foray into non-family friendly language, ticked me off, I am not a fan of negativity. I generally dislike it when people come to the table with only problems and never solutions. I think a big part of this, as I alluded to, is on CIG to protect the integrity of their game. But we can also do our part as players who love the game and want it to succeed. So my proposal is that when it comes to exploits, we all just stop and ask ourselves those two questions before we do it. Is it harming my gameplay experience? Am I depriving myself of something? Am I repetitively doing something that's not fun? Am I missing out on a chance to get better and improve my skill? Am I forgoing the opportunity to make some new friends? And 2, am I harming someone else? Should I be in this room when someone comes through the door with a keycard? Should I take their loot that's rightfully theirs? Am I killing the incentive for someone to do the gameplay that they love? Am I contributing to the increased frequency of wipes? If the answer to either of these questions is yes, or leaves you with a slightly bad feeling, don't. Thank you for taking the time to get here to the end. I would absolutely love to hear your opinions on this subject, and I'm genuinely all for healthy debate on where the lines lie. I promise that in the next video we're going to be back to normal for this channel, looking at interesting things to do and helping people to learn how to play their way through loops as intended. If you do enjoy that sort of content, please consider subscribing and checking out the other videos. But with all that said, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.